In this video, I'm going to show you some ways of starting to model slightly more complicated objects and some different ways to start modeling. So we're going to do part of this sword and focus mostly on the blade. The handle can be a revolve and you get to this really detailed, kind of more organic look. You want to simplify it and turn it into the general shape that it is. You can definitely get this effect, but it's much easier with sculpting tools like ZBrush. So we're going to focus more on the blade and the handle itself. So I'm going to change my camera to the top view or the side view. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. I'll go to the right view. Grid back on. I'm going to go to View, Image Plane, and Import Image, and find the sword that I'm looking for. I'm going to rotate it so it's 90 degrees. And it's more or less centered already. If it was offset, you just want to move it so the center of the sword is in the center of the grid. And I'm going to start by modeling something that's not actually there. I'm going to model this negative space right here because it does make it a lot easier to make the rest of the shape. Before I do that, I don't want to continuously accidentally just click on my reference all the time. So I'm going to move it further back. You want to make sure that in your right camera, you can still see the grid. If you move it forward, you'll notice that the grid disappears. And that means anything that you create is going to be sitting behind your image plane. So you want to move it backwards. It doesn't matter how far away it is, because in the orthographic camera, it's kind of just irrelevant. But I don't want to select it all the time. So I'm going to select the image plane and go to my channel box, which is on the very top right corner. It might open docked over here or in a new window. And the channel box and the attribute editor have a lot of overlap. However, something that this has that the attribute editor doesn't is this display option on the bottom. Then go to layers and create layer from selected. I have the image plane selected. I have this V for visibility. I can turn it on and off. P, which you can ignore, and then the last box is empty. And if you click it twice, it'll be on R for reference. So you can't select it anymore, which is nice because it's really easy to accidentally select an image plane or move it when you're trying to move something else. I'm going to rename this just by double-clicking on layer 1 and type in image plane. If you put a space instead of an underscore, it will give you an error. It's the only place I've found that does not automatically put in an underscore for you. And then save, and you got image plane. All right, so I'm going to start by modeling this circle right here. I'm going to make a cylinder, and I'm going to rotate it so it's facing the camera. I'm going to hit T to open up these attributes, or go to the attribute editor to the third tab, and you have the same thing. And I'm going to simplify it. I don't want 20 subdivisions. That's kind of a lot. I'm going to go to 8 instead. I also don't need the entire cylinder. I just want those 8 faces. So I'm going to delete them, center my pivot, and I just have a very simple 8-sided circle. I'm going to scale it down and roughly get it lined up with the center of this reference. It won't fit perfectly, obviously, but we can get close. And then I need to model the rest of this inside. So I'm going to go to edge mode, and even though it'll overlap a little bit, I'm going to select these first 2 edges, hold down shift or any other way you want to extrude, and drag it all the way down to where it's about to start to taper. I'm going to hit R to scale, and then scale it flat. So I can't actually see my reference anymore because it's covering the model's covering it up. There's a few ways you can fix it. You have this X-ray option over here, which sometimes is fine depending on your reference and your background. It can be sometimes hard to see, sometimes easier to see. If you don't like what the reference or what the X-ray is showing you, sometimes I like to assign a new Lambert. make it a dark gray, and then increase that transparency a little bit, and you have a lot more control over exactly what you want for your transparency settings. I'm going to select these end vertices and scale them down. You do the same thing if you selected those two edges. And then extrude again. And even though it looks like it comes to just a point, I want to keep it quads. So I'm going to scale it down so they're very small edges. And now I need to make it match the reference a little bit better. So I'm going to go to multi-cut. And I'm also going to turn off my grid. So it's I don't really need the grid on right now. So I'm going to turn that off, which is a little button under panels. Or you can go to display and grid and turn it on and off from there. I'm going to put in just 2 more edges right now. I'm going to select them and I'm going to scale them so they're straight. And then scale them down to match the reference. And then coming over here, I want to have an edge right where the circle extrudes forward. And I'm not going to scale this one. I'm just going to, not going to scale it straight. I'm going to scale it down to match. And then move it to the correct position. And your edges and topology don't really matter on this part because it is going to be deleted eventually. But the more accurate it is to your reference, the easier it is going to be in the future. So I don't care that there's triangles. It could be all n-gons right now. It doesn't really matter. I just want to get it pretty close to my reference. And overall, that's looking pretty good. We could obviously subdivide a little bit more if we needed to. Oops. If we needed to have it a bit more accurate, I'm going to keep it simple and just leave it like this. The next step is to start building the part of the sword that's actually there. I'm going to focus on this little yellow area first. So I'm going to double click on this edge loop going all the way around. And I'm going to extrude and not give it a thickness, give it an offset and just scale it up a little bit. Let's go back over here. And starting to look pretty good. I want it to match a little bit better. I could always just do the top or bottom half and then use the mirror tool if I wanted. There's also another tool in Maya in the modeling toolkit called symmetry, and it's off by default. I'm going to click on it and go to topology and just click on that center edge. Now when I go to vertex, when I select this top vertex, that bottom one will move as well. I'll leave that one there. And it doesn't matter if you grab the top or bottom one, it'll be the same thing. When I have something like this, I do want to have this vertex in the corner for where that edge is supposed to go. And eventually this will be much more rounded so it matches the reference even better. Cool. So technically we don't need this center part anymore. There we go. I'm going to turn off symmetry for now. I'm going to show you a few different ways to make more geometry. And I want to create geometry in between this little gold line right here. I'm kind of ignoring this part of the yellow. We definitely could add some more of that in just by extruding down, but for now I'm going to ignore it and just work on other parts. So there's a few tools you could use. You can just select an edge and you can extrude up and move it, and then select the next edge, move the vertices or merge the vertices and move them around. That works perfectly well, and sometimes that is what you have to do. But there is another tool called Quad Draw. I'm going to have this model selected, and in the modeling toolkit, go down to Quad Draw on the bottom right. And what this tool allows me to do is just click and create vertices where I want them. So I want a vertex just right up here, another one right up there, and another one say over here. When I hold down Shift, I can create that geometry. So it can be a very quick way to create some geometry where none are there, where there was none before. And somewhere like this, like I definitely need to have an edge around right here so I can have this change in direction. So I'm going to hold down Control, still in the Quad Draw tool, and it turns into the multi-cut. And then I can click and drag that edge, round it out a little bit better. I'm not worried about this gold thing right here. I'm just going to do something like that. And then I can hit Q to get out of the quad draw. I'm just going to straighten this. So the quad draw can be a really nice way to create some geometry very quickly. It will sometimes want to give you a quad that is incorrect. It found 4 vertices. That is not what I want it to look like. So if you accidentally do that, just hit Z and then find the one that you want. Actually, I'm going to leave that one there. If you have extra dots that you didn't mean to create, there is at the bottom of the quad draw tool, clear dots, and they go away. I'm going to have one right here and right there to create that part. And here I'll start creating some more of this gold area. And right now I am only focusing on the top half of the sword. I can mirror this over later. And then I'll start making the outside ring, going around. And when you get to a really long area like this, sometimes a quad draw tool won't see it. So what you can do is just subdivide and give yourself kind of a halfway point if you are having issues. And then over here it kind of splits. This one goes this way. So to make that, I'm just going to draw in a few manual ones, and I'll just stop around right here. And then I have to figure out how I'm going to connect all of this together. Well, I very obviously need more geometry here because it is not matching the reference very well. So I'll hold down Control. I'll make another one. And you can hover over faces, edges, or vertices to move them around. And then I can figure out how can I make this a quad. Right now, if I connected these, I'd have a triangle. If I put one dot right here in the center, hold down Shift, I do have a quad. So that is exactly what I want. And then I'll just have this split into 2 separate faces like that. Just with one more dot in the back, I can create those 2 faces. And since everywhere else has a bit of a kind of a subdivide with this extra geometry, I'm going to do the same thing over here, just so it matches a little bit better. Really nice to start simple when you are modeling something a bit more complex like this. You don't want to jump in immediately and have, say, 20 subdivisions going all the way around so it matches really well. You can slowly build that detail up. I did almost all of this in the quad draw tool, which is a very, very helpful tool. I'm going to hit Q to get out of it, go into face mode, and I'm going to delete the bottom. Come over here, delete that one face. So now I just have half of the sword minus the tip, which I forgot about, so let's make that right now. Back in quad draw tool. And for this one, it gets a little bit harder to figure out exactly how you would put it together. You can hold down tab and extrude out, and let's just see if we can make that work without having a weird topology. If you hold down tab and extrude and you drag it, just that edge close to another vertex, it will automatically merge them together. So this matches the reference pretty well. it does make the mirror a little bit more difficult. So what I'm going to do is just use the multi-cut and turn it into a triangle right now, and just delete that bottom part. We can turn it back into a quad later. However, for now, I do just want to have it ready for duplication. And you can actually turn it into a quad 1, 2, 3, and 4 just by subdividing right here, which I might leave because it does match that reference a little bit better. So I have my top part of a sword. I'm going to delete my history. Whenever you use the quad draw tool, it does give you more history. So every dot, every time I hold down shift to fill in the face. So I'm going to delete my history. So I should just have these three things. And I'm going to mirror top to bottom. So I'm going to make sure my pivot point is on somewhere where it's going to connect. So I'm going to hold down D and V and just drag it down here to that vertex. I'll probably have to do a little bit of cleanup, but it'll be close. And then go to Mesh and Mirror. And if it disappears like this, don't worry. Change it from World to Object. And Axis going to be Y. And then I'm going to change that merge threshold to 0.01. In case you forget, what the merge threshold does is it's how far away does it look for vertices to merge. So right now it's looking way too far. So I bring that down quite a bit. 0.01. There we go. I'll have a little bit of manual merging to do, but it won't merge things that shouldn't be merged. So I'll select those vertices, merge those two. I'm hitting G to repeat the last command. It did give me this little floating vertex right here. You may or may not have it. If I try to delete it, it goes away. Sometimes these floating vertices won't go away when you delete them. So the best way is just use the target weld tool and just drag it to a vertex that's close by. I'll do the same thing over here. Merge, merge, make sure that is merged, which it is. So I have a pretty good start. I want to do a little bit of cleanup. Generally, you don't want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this many edges going to one vertex. So I'm going to figure out what I can do instead. So I might have this edge come straight down. So now I have two very simple quads up here, which is great. Back here, I do have some triangles. And all the times that I'm trying to figure out how can I make this better topology, I will delete the edges that I don't want. So got rid of it. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It looks like I can just go straight top to bottom. So now this is a kind of a much simpler area. It might not match the reference as well, just with how all of the edges are laid out, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm really more going for the overall shape of this sword. All right, so now I have the shape. I'm going to delete history again. There's a few ways we can give it depth. So I'm going to duplicate it just so I have the original one. And the easiest way to give it depth is to select all the faces, extrude, and on the blue arrow, drag out. If I hit 3, it should smooth nicely. It won't be exactly what you want yet, but it does have depth. You can also select the border edges and drag them inwards a little bit. So I'll drag them to the right. And I'm trying to build up what that blade is going to look like. And you might not want to do it all the way around. So maybe the blade stops about right here. So I'm going to deselect all of those edges and just drag them. I'm not extruding, I'm just moving them. And now I'm going to mirror left to right, or right to left. I'm going to move the pivot point anywhere on that blade. Go to mirror and find the right settings again. So now you have kind of already a bit of a blade set up. and then a little bit of cleanup to do in the back. So I would just bridge that together, give it a subdivision, and then use fill hole right here. And now I have a quad. It looks like a triangle, it is a quad. Sometimes what you can do is just move that edge back a little bit so it's more obviously a quad. If you just scale it, it is going to change that shape. Or not scale it, just move it. It's going to change that shape. Back in the modeling toolkit, there's a very helpful transform constraint called edge slide. I'm just going to slide it. So now that vertex is going to slide on that edge instead of going in world space and changing the overall shape of the object. I'll do the same thing on the bottom. Take those two edges, bridge them together, fill the hole, and that's going to slide that back a bit. So obviously this one has a bit more of a blade, which is nice. This one we can give a blade very easily. I'm just going to do the entire thing around. I'll delete those back faces. You could scale them together. Let me turn off edge slide. You have a very similar end result. Bevel may or may not work. Probably scaling them inwards would be the easiest right now. And you can start by having your nice topology for your sword. I'm going to keep this one, because why not? And then you have to figure out how am I going to do the rest of it. Well, I do need to have not a hole right here. Let me get rid of that black background. Oops. There we go. So there's a hole right here. So I'm going to select these edge loops on the left and right sides and go to bridge, just so I have some geometry there. Can very easily add some nice beveling here. If you toggle 3, you can see what it will look like when you smooth it. So maybe you want to have more or less of a bevel. You can do all sorts of things. You can invert it so it's going on the inside. You can give it lots of nice detail. And quite often I will do detailing only on one side. So I probably wouldn't have even beveled this side regularly. So I have the original side and then the side I'm working on. If I don't like the side I'm working on, I have the original. If I like the side I'm working on, I can mirror it over. I'll also generally have duplicates. So before I do a lot of detailing, I'll just duplicate and hide so I can go back and fix things or start over if I want to. Now I do want some of this to hold its shape a bit better. So right up here, which is where I have the move manipulator, that has a much kind of a sharper curve. It's not so smooth. When I hit 3, it kind of goes away. And what I want it to do is this. So I have these two edges selected. If I bevel them and have a fairly small fraction, it's going to hold that shape a lot better. Obviously now I have some bad geometry because I did not bevel that entire edge loop. If I bevel the entire edge loop going all the way around, I won't have that bad topology. Oops. However, I will hit the wrong button. There we go. But I no longer have a perfect circle in here because these edges are changing the shape of that circle. When you have edges really close together, it's going to change how it smooths. So up here on the top, it looks great, but down here, less so. What I'm going to do is select these edges. So I'm going kind of just this bottom half of the loop on the left side from here all the way around. I am not selecting the top. And I'm going to see if Edit Edge Flow will work. In theory, it should put this edge directly in the center right here and keep that circle. So Shift right click or Edit Mesh and go down to Edit Edge Flow. And it's going to put it right here in the center. I'm going to go around and do the same thing to the other side and hit G. So it should keep that nice circle down here. but give us a nice sharper area on the top. That part's looking pretty nice right now. I do want to give it more of an actual blade. Right now it's a very soft rounded blade. So I'm going to double click. I will have some n-gons here where this triangle is, but that's okay. Or not really a triangle, but triangle-esque. And go around, make sure that it is, looks like we have a bit of an issue here. Like this is from the original mirror. It just didn't mirror properly, so I have just some weird edges and vertices up here. I'm going to select all of them and merge them to the center. Because when you double click on that center loop, it should go all the way around. So if it stops, go to where it stops and do a little bit of mesh cleanup. Usually just a merge vertex. I'm going to bevel this area. It's going to be a very small bevel with segments of 2. So now it's going to hold that shape a lot better when I hit 3 for that smoothing preview. And then back here, we do have to do a little bit more cleanup. And this one's actually super easy. So first off, if your camera's ever clipping through your model when you're zooming in, click on your perspective camera in your outliner, go to your attribute editor to the second tab, the persp shape, and change your near clip plane to 0.1 to maybe 0.01. So now it can see things that are a lot closer. And this area is a bit of an issue. And I'm just going to delete these 3 edges, making that perfect little triangle, and I'm just going to delete them. And we now have an n-gon, but we have a center edge here and here that is just missing one edge. So I'm going to use the multi-cut tool and fill it. So now we have a much nicer topology than we had before, which is still there on the bottom. And it's looking a bit better. Next thing I want to do is sharpen the front of the blade. Actually, I want to do a few things to the front. So I'm going to select these front vertices right here. And I want to scale them down so it has a bit more of a point, which can't tell if that's what the reference does. It's 2D, but I'm going to assume that it has a bit of a point. If I just scale these, it's not going to look great. But if I turn on soft select, which the hotkey is B, as in background, and then hold down B and left click, you can resize your brush to make it bigger or smaller. So you're going to have a pretty big brush. And I'm going to have a lot of this sword come to a point. I'm not going to go all the way to the center. It gets two-dimensional there and you don't want that. Hit B to turn it off. So now I have a bit of a nicer point to that sword. It's still going to be really rounded on the front when I smooth though, which I do not want. So I'm going to select that edge loop going all the way around. I always double check to make sure it actually goes all the way around. And I'm going to bevel it. And again, give it a fairly small bevel. So when I hit 3, it holds that shape a bit better. And then for the back, like I said in the beginning, when you have this really complicated looking geometry, you don't want to do all of it. We're doing a nice base mesh for a sword. Stuff like this, you could do cool, fancy sculpting in ZBrush. Maya has some sculpting tools, but we're going to avoid them for now. You just want to simplify all of it. And then this handle here, this one's going to be relatively easy. It's going to be a curve. And I'm going to do that part right now. So let's create a curve. And again, I'm going to be ignoring a lot of this really fancy detail. If you hear weird music in the background, that is my washer telling me that it's done. Hopefully you can't. And I'm just going to draw out this curve. And you can't really see what it does here, so make something up. It could just stop. I usually go a little bit further, just so I have a little wiggle room. And this is going to be different than some of our other curves we've done before. So first off, Let me turn on the grid. So where did my curve go? It's right here. There it is. So usually what we've done before with our curves is they were up and down and they were in the center of the grid right here. So we could revolve around the origin. If I revolve right now, it's going to go around in kind of all the wrong areas. If I go up to curve, surfaces and revolve, double check my settings. I have polygons and control points. If I hit apply, oh, I already changed my settings to work. Let's go back to defaults, polygons, and control points. It's going to look like this, which is not what I want it to look like. So I'm going to delete that. Select my curve again, and we are revolving by default around the y-axis, which is up and down. So it's going around like that. If I change it to, depending on your camera, X or Z, for me it'll be Z, if I hit apply, it will revolve around the other direction. If yours does not look good, if it looks something more like that, you just need to choose another direction. And I'm going to keep my curve, might need it again in the future. And depending on how you want your sword to work, it could be two separate pieces, like this, with a third part just kind of covering up, and it'll be three separate models. Or we can figure out how to connect it, similar to what we did for the knight for back in the chessboard. If I wanted to connect it right now, it'd be difficult because I have 8 edges here and I have 16 edges here. The easiest thing to do is just re-revolve and say instead of 8, give me 16. And this will be not the greatest bridge, but if you combine your objects together, you can bridge. And it will sometimes be a little twisted, so that's what this twist is for. And sometimes it will not untwist in a way that you want. So the easiest, again, way to fix it is select, say, those top 2 edges in the center and these top 2 edges and bridge those. And that kind of sets the edge flow. So now if I double click here, it's going to select this entire area. I'm going to deselect these 2 edges from the bridge and do a new bridge. So now it's going to be a nice, smooth, proper edge flow going through everything. So right now it looks a little bit breakable. But this is where you could start your third piece of geometry. Well, let's get rid of that edge. So maybe I want to have a cool piece of detail here. I'll select these faces. I will duplicate the face. And then you can extrude out and start modeling whatever kind of piece you want here. And if it varies from the concept art a bit, that's fine. So maybe it looks cooler if this even kind of intersects the circle a little bit down there. Whatever looks good. But again, you're keeping the overall shape a bit simple. You don't want to do all of those same bumps just because not really what type of modeling we are doing right now. And that part you can do whatever you think looks good. You do have to have some type of geometry on top of it. And hopefully the blade has no n-gons. Always good to double check. So I'm going to go to select, use constraints, make this smaller, all in next, go into face mode and choose n-sided. I do have a few down here. This is because I did not mirror the top to the bottom. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to go to mesh, mirror, Y, and I think this is the good one. Yep. All right, so those original n-gons are gone, which is fine. I do have new ones right here. I'm ignoring that. This is just left over from the mirror tool. Just vertex right there. There we go. But down here, I have to figure out what am I doing with this. Well, again, I'm going to delete that area and go top to bottom just to even that out a little bit. And I can see, all right, here are my two obvious n-gons. What am I going to do? Well, hit the wrong button. Now I'm going to go multi-cut and just go top to bottom right here. I'll do the same thing on this side. So what I did is I moved this back. I just held down V. I'm going to hold this down. And then I can see I can very easily just cut top to bottom. And now there are no more n-gons on the model, so I'll turn off all of this. Unisolate, and then you can start building the rest of the sword.